Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Our next guest had been long speculated as a likely candidate in next year's mayor's race, but that all changed last week when he announced a run for a different citywide office. Joining us to explain why he would be the best city controller is Manhattan Borough President Scott Stringer.
Great to be on the show.
Welcome, sir, and congratulations to you. I am told that your wife is expecting baby number 2.
It's very exciting. We're thrilled. It's just been a wonderful time, and we're getting ready. So we need a second crib.
And a lot more patience.
And a lot more
I can
patience.
attest. All right, so let's get down to politics. You've been rumored to be considering city controller for a long time. I mean, obviously, respectfully, as you know, the poll numbers weren't going up. They were staying where they were. When did you actually decide that you wanted to run for controller instead?
Yeah, I consulted supporters, friends, people I respect in government, obviously my wife Elise, and I came to the decision that the controller's job was the best way I could make a contribution today. Let's face it, the city is in the midst of some real hard financial decisions. And when you think about the post-Sandy economy, when you think about the gap years where we have multi-billion-dollar budgets, I want to bring my experience as borough president, my experience as a state legislator, my experience on the pension fund, the NYCER's pension fund, my experience issuing 50 reports, looking at ways to make the city agencies run better, root out wasteful spending. I believe all of this can make a real difference for New York City. So I decided to run for controller.
Well, talk about your financial background, because people know you more as a policy guy. You know, this job is the city's essentially CFO.
You're the chief financial officer, and you're the fiscal watchdog. And when you look at where I've been in government, my skill set fits this job. So, for example, as I mentioned, I issued 50 reports as Manhattan Borough President over 7 years. A lot of those reports were about rooting out wasteful spending, not just gotcha reports, but also creating a roadmap for agencies to do a better job. I partnered with the mayor on a host of policy issues when it was the right thing to do, but I have a reputation for being fiercely independent. Somebody who can audit agencies without fear of special interests or anyone else for that matter. As a member of the State Assembly, I chaired the Oversight and Investigations Committee. I was chair of the Real Property Taxation Committee at a time when there was a $1 billion tax assessor scandal. The city lost $160 million over 4 years. I helped clean that mess up. As borough president, I also serve on the pension fund, the $42 billion NYCER's pension fund, where I've worked collaboratively with other fiduciaries to make sure that that fund is managed well. When you put that experience together and the fact that, like the controller, I serve on the Franchise Concession Review Committee, looking at government contracts like the Verizon deal, the Time Warner deal, the street furniture proposal, where I played a role really watching out for the public interest. Put that together, I think I can make a tremendous contribution as the chief fiscal watchdog of this city.
Do you think that pension investments should be done strictly on the basis of the returns that you get, or should they also take into consideration the company's interests, whether there are embargoes or and so forth?
The pension, the first responsibility you have as controller to the pension fund is to the 700,000 people who rely on the pension system, the retirees and those that are still active. So you're a fiduciary to make sure the fund is in a good place economically. But there is room to look at corporate governance issues with an eye towards making companies better, because that will provide a greater rate of return. So sometimes you look at corporations and you say, look, here's a roadmap for the company to do a better job, and you use the leverage of that pension fund. You don't do it all the time. You do it as a way of helping the pension fund. So I think there certainly is room.
What do you make of the current controller and the former controller? Give me some, what they did right, what they did wrong?
Well, I have a lot of respect for John Liu, and I've worked with him on a lot of issues relating to the controller's job. We both serve on the Franchise Concession Review Committee. I serve on the NYCER's pension fund. I've worked with him on a host of issues. But the job of controller for me is what I'm going to do. It's about elevating the job, because anyone who runs for higher office should believe that they can do better than the person who's been there.
Okay, so how would you do better?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that we bring the best and the brightest into this office. We need a chief investment officer and a staff that's going to manage the money in the best way possible. You know, the job of controller is not to be the day trader. The job is to be a manager. When I became borough president, for example, people thought, well, why are you taking that job? It's dead on arrival. There's nothing you can do there. And I think by any measure, I've been a borough president that's been active, that's been thoughtful, that has participated in major deals for university expansion, looking at agencies and trying to create a better life for New York City residents. Right now, I believe I can come into this office, help working people in the city who feel that their tax dollar is not really working for them. I want to look at agencies and create models so that we can create an economic roadmap, especially post-Sandy, so that we can sort of recover from what I think is a very devastating time in our city.
Do you do your own taxes?
I have a very good accountant, and again, this job is not about being the accountant or being the day trader. This is about being a very good manager. This office has an $84 million budget, 720 employees. This is a very serious job that requires a reform-minded view of the world and a view of this city, somebody who can, I think, elevate this office, because let's face it, we're going to have a new mayor, a new speaker, a new city council for the most part. I want to be somebody that brings my experience managing a major office to do what's good for the city, and what's good is to watch out for the taxpayers of New York. In my travels around the city, time and time again, people are worried about the economy. Middle-class New Yorkers are working harder than ever, and they're falling farther behind. They want to make sure that when they pay their taxes, they're getting their money's worth. And the controller, with the power of audit, the power of investigation, can create a level playing field for all New Yorkers. In my role in looking at and analyzing contracts, 18,000 contracts are registered with the Comptroller's office. My experience doing these kind of investigations, this kind of policy work will fit well with the skill set needed to be New York City Comptroller.
Well, we're going to talk about some of those big issues in just a second. We have to take a break first. We'll have more with the Manhattan Borough President. Plus, we'll ask our New York One Wise guys if President Obama should risk a fight in the U.S. Senate and nominate UN Ambassador Susan Rice to be his next Secretary of State. And then later, we'll discuss Americans killed in Libya centuries before the death of Ambassador Chris Stevens on September 11th. Don't go away. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. We're talking to Manhattan Borough President Scott Stringer, who recently announced his candidacy for City Controller in 2013. All right, indulge us. Put on your pundit cap, because this was done right after you said that you weren't in the mayor's race. The day after story is, who does this benefit? So, who does this benefit? Christine Quinn, because now she's the only one from Manhattan, or Bill de Blasio, because he's running more to the left? Give us a little something.
With my running for controller, I think opens up an opportunity for people like Christine Quinn and Bill Thompson and Bill de Blasio to take up whatever space I had in that race. And the best way I think they can focus on voters who I appeal to is run an issue-oriented campaign, talk about how you would educate children in the city, talk about how we deal with protecting our citizens in an era of terrorism and a limited police force. We're not going to have the resources that perhaps other mayors had in the post-Bloomberg era. We're going to have to do more with less. As controller, I'm going to work to do the kind of economic forecasting that's going to help whoever the next mayor is. I'm going to give them the ideas and the tools they need to make the important decisions that only the mayor can make. So right now, I think this field is wide open. I will give you one prediction. The next mayor is going to be a Democrat, and it's going to be one of these three Democrats. And I look forward to a robust debate among those candidates. And as a controller candidate, I'm going to put forth ideas and proposals related to the Comptroller's office, how to streamline the office, how to make it more effective, how to be a strong counterweight to the mayor, but also recognizing that the mayor and the Comptroller must partner on so many issues relating to the finances of the city. The mayor and the Comptroller, for example, goes to the rating agencies, Fitch, Standard & Poor's, S&P, makes a case about the 4-year financial plan required by the state. So I want to hear what these candidates are talking about as it relates to our economy.
Do you think that John Liu is a factor at all in this race?
Well, John's a good guy, and he says he's going to run for mayor. So
yeah, but
is
he a factor in this race? I mean,
listen. Everyone is a factor until the polls close, and for the life of me, I can't understand why we spend so much time talking about polls that at the end of the day are usually wrong in these races. There's no such thing as a front runner until primary day or election day. The person who's going to be the next mayor and the person who's going to be the next controller is going to be the person who lays out a vision for this city, somebody who shows competence, has a record of getting things done, and sometimes you have to show strength, go against the crowd, show some independence, show some moxie. That's the great tradition of Ed Koch and other great mayors who endorsed me, by the way. And I want to see a mayor who's going to sort of lift the city up, but recognize we're in very difficult financial times.
Are you going to endorse?
I'm contemplating an endorsement. I think as somebody who served as borough president, as a state assembly member, somebody who looked at a mayoral race, I want to vote and support the person I think can be good for my family, my kids, and the future of the city.
Okay, so obviously you're concerned about a lot of different issues, and you're also concerned about how it would work for you running on a citywide ticket. If you had to ask them one question, all the candidates lined up, the Democratic candidates, what would that one question be?
I think post-hurricane, when we look at the devastation of Sandy, I can tell you how hard it was for people in Lower Manhattan, but I also had occasion to help out in Coney Island and get out to Staten Island. And I could tell you there's real devastation, thousands of people homeless, people right now without heat or hot water. This building effort is going to be immense. In fact, the price tag the mayor's talking about is $19 billion. Governor Cuomo pegs the state recovery cost at $42 billion. So the next mayor is going to walk in with very limited resources, even before the hurricane.
We only have a minute, so what's your question?
Even before the hurricane, we had multi-billion-dollar gaps in our budget. So the question is, tell us an economic plan as it relates to the Sandy recovery, but the long-term financial impact of this city. That's something that's going to impact schools, that's going to impact an affordable housing plan, and obviously we have to make sure we provide essential services to people even in difficult times. We need a mayoral candidate to lay it out for us in a serious way so voters can make an informed decision.
It's also interesting, obviously Mayor Bloomberg is leaving after 3 terms in office. He has a tremendous legacy, I guess, whether people are fans of him or not. What kind of grade would you give Mayor Bloomberg?
I think Mayor Bloomberg's been a good mayor. I think he has a record that he can take away and be proud of. Obviously, the next mayor has to navigate beyond him, and I think that's going to be a challenge. But remember, the job of the next mayor is to do better than the mayor before, because that's the way we New Yorkers expect our mayors to act. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Mr. Borough President. I appreciate it. It's time for a break. Coming up next, we'll have a report on 2 Republican U.S. senators who are pushing for immigration reform before the end of the year. And then the 3 wise guys talk about a possible disconnect between Mayor Bloomberg and Governor Cuomo when it comes to post-Sandy aid.